in a trafficking ring busted operating in communities from Centralia to Sammamish.
Agents seized fentanyl pills by the tens of thousands and guns by the dozens.
In all, 10 people were arrested. Here's a look at just some of the firearms that were found. Many of them are high-powered assault-style guns.
DEA has just delivered one of the most coordinated crackdowns Washington has ever seen. In a 36-hour series of pre-dawn raids stretching from Lewis County to Snohomish County, the Drug Enforcement Administration and Seattle Police Department dismantled a transnational drug and gun trafficking network that investigators say has been pumping narcotics into Puget Sound communities for years. 10 suspects are now in federal custody after simultaneous strikes hit homes, warehouses, and stash properties across 12 locations. The operation, part of a nationwide campaign known as Operation Take Back America, marks a major victory in the government's fight against organized crime and cartel-linked arms trafficking. Officials describe it not as a simple drug bust, but as the takedown of an armed supply chain that paired narcotics with high-powered weapons and funneled both into the heart of Washington's cities. More than 100 agents and officers from federal, state, and local task forces participated in the mission, moving with military precision across the region. At sunrise, tactical units breached fortified doors in Centralia, Tacoma, and Sammamish, while FBI aircraft circled overhead relaying live video to a command center in downtown Seattle. Within minutes, streets were sealed, suspects detained, and evidence flowing into federal custody. Inside those properties, agents found what one official called the infrastructure of a criminal enterprise: industrial presses, vacuum sealers, heat-wrapped packages of fentanyl, and racks of loaded rifles ready for use. The network's reach was far greater than investigators first believed. DEA analysts traced the flow of drugs from Sonora, Mexico, through Arizona, and north along Interstate 5, where shipments were distributed by local gang affiliates. The group didn't just sell narcotics, it controlled an entire pipeline from the border to the Pacific Northwest, protected by stolen firearms and intimidation. The seizures tell the story in numbers few regions have ever seen. Agents recovered about 100,000 fentanyl pills, 34 kilograms of fentanyl powder, 8.7 kilograms of cocaine, 3.7 kilograms of methamphetamine, and nearly a kilogram of heroin, quantities capable of killing tens of thousands. Alongside the narcotics, investigators seized 34 firearms, including AR-15-style rifles, sawed-off shotguns, and stolen handguns traced to prior violent crimes. Over $40,000 in cash was pulled from safes, vehicles, and hidden floor compartments. One senior agent called the discovery record-level quantities for a single Western Washington operation. Laboratory tests later confirmed that the fentanyl powder was of cartel-grade purity, identical to batches seized in recent border interdictions. Federal officials say this proves a direct logistical link between Mexico's manufacturing hubs and the dealers operating on Seattle's streets. For law enforcement, the significance goes beyond numbers. This takedown exposed how closely gun trafficking and fentanyl distribution have become intertwined. Agents believe firearms were being traded for bulk drug shipments, turning local gangs into logistical partners for international suppliers. The combination of weapons and narcotics created what one prosecutor called a perfect storm for community violence. Every gun confiscated was a potential homicide prevented. Every kilo seized represented lives saved from overdose. This was not just about stopping drugs, said a veteran DEA agent at the scene. It was about dismantling the entire ecosystem that made those drugs possible. As dusk fell on the day of the raids, armored vehicles rolled back into their bases, evidence lockers filled, and a task force commander summed it up in one line: "We took their guns, their drugs, and their power." For residents across Western Washington, it was more than a police operation. It was a message that the era of cartel-backed gangs flooding local streets with poison and firepower is coming to an end. The centerpiece of the investigation was a property on the outskirts of Centralia, an unmarked warehouse that agents later described as a distribution fortress. What looked like an abandoned auto garage was, in reality, the operational heart of the entire network. Inside, agents discovered 25 kilograms of fentanyl powder, over 90,000 pills, and 24 firearms, including AR platform rifles fitted with suppressors and extended magazines. The walls were lined with insulation stuffed with cash and narcotics, and a reinforced steel door led to a hidden backroom used for packaging. Agents said the setup was designed for speed, a constant rotation of couriers loading cars, wiping surfaces, and driving north before sunrise. The property was directly tied to Jose Isabel Sandoval Zuniga, who was arrested hours later in his vehicle carrying 1.6 kilograms of fentanyl. A search of his Sammamish home uncovered even more: heroin, additional fentanyl powder, and a .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol kept beside his bed. Investigators believe Zuniga served as the logistical coordinator between Arizona suppliers and local distribution cells scattered through King and Pierce counties. By the time the raids were complete, 10 defendants were in custody, each charged under federal statutes that carry mandatory minimum sentences of 10 years due to the sheer quantity of narcotics seized. Federal prosecutors filed charges including conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, possession with intent to distribute fentanyl and methamphetamine, and illegal possession and trafficking of firearms. Several of the suspects were repeat offenders with prior felony convictions for armed robbery and drug offenses. The U.S. Attorney's Office said indictments were unsealed in Seattle's U.S. District Court just hours after the final arrest. This was not random street crime, one prosecutor said. It was a structured criminal organization built to move poison across counties, and we just took it apart piece by piece. More arrests are expected in the coming weeks as forensic teams analyze communications and financial records seized during the raids. The deeper investigators dug, the clearer the cartel connection became. DEA and Homeland Security analysts confirmed the network functioned as a hybrid chain, a merger of local gang affiliates and international suppliers. The firearms discovered at multiple sites were not for show. Several were traced to prior violent crimes, including carjackings and shootings in Tacoma and Everett. Agents believe the gang was using the gun trade as both currency and control, exchanging weapons for bulk drug shipments and enforcing local discipline through intimidation. One of the recovered rifles matched shell casings from an unsolved double shooting in Kent, linking the narcotics trade directly to community violence. Every firearm was part of the business model, an HSI agent said. They weren't just dealing fentanyl, they were financing it with firepower. Federal intelligence reports show the network's supply routes traced south towards Sonora, Mexico, using intermediaries in Phoenix to receive bulk shipments before rerouting them to Washington through truck convoys and air couriers. The tactical execution of the operation required precision coordination rarely seen outside counter-terror units. Over a 36-hour window, SWAT teams from Seattle Police, King County TAC 30, Washington State Patrol, BORTAC, and North Sound Metro SWAT executed synchronized entries across multiple counties. In Centralia, armored Bearcat vehicles breached the warehouse gates while flashbangs illuminated the rural lot. In Sammamish, tactical agents used silent entry tools to infiltrate a residential property without alerting neighbors. Officers described the suspects as heavily armed but disoriented, overwhelmed by the speed and scale of the assault. By nightfall, every primary target was in custody, and not a single agent or bystander was injured. Federal officials praised the flawless coordination among agencies, crediting their unified command system for preventing casualties. "We hit them faster than they could reach for a weapon," one SWAT operator said. "That's the difference between arresting traffickers and attending funerals." When the dust settled, law enforcement had not only seized drugs and guns but dismantled the machinery that moved them. A rare, clean strike that agents said will echo through the Pacific Northwest's criminal underworld for years. Inside the federal command post in downtown Seattle, walls of live feeds from raids across western Washington flickered through the night as agents logged evidence and processed detainees. The takedown was the result of months of joint coordination under the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force's OCDETF framework, a national program that unites the DEA, Seattle Police Department, IRS Criminal Investigation, Homeland Security Investigations, Customs and Border Protection, and the U.S. Attorney's Office into one mission. Officials said the teamwork between federal intelligence analysts and SPD narcotics detectives was textbook precision. Every agency handled a critical layer. The DEA tracked supply routes, SPD mapped street dealers, the IRS followed cash transfers, and CBP traced smuggling nodes back to Mexico. The result was a complete cut-through of a criminal network that had been operating underground for years. Agents said the case proved that no local city is too small and no cartel connection too distant to face federal reach. By morning, the press briefing room was standing room only. U.S. Attorney Charles Neal Floyd announced the charges in measured tones, calling the investigation a direct strike against the armed criminal element poisoning our communities. Behind him stood DEA Special Agent in Charge David Reams, flanked by officers from SPD and King County Sheriff's Office. Reams told reporters that pairing guns with fentanyl was a recipe for mass casualties that we could no longer ignore. He praised the agents who took part in the raids, saying they risked their lives to intercept lethal drugs before they could reach children and families. Seattle Police Chief Sean Barnes added that his officers were now embedded with federal task forces full-time, a new model for urban crime suppression that combines federal resources with local knowledge. The message is simple, Barnes said. If you're selling fentanyl in Seattle, if you're running guns through Tacoma or Snohomish, there is no corner we won't reach. Agents behind the podium nodded silently, because for them, the job wasn't over. Outside the courthouse, families and community leaders gathered to thank officers for the raids. In neighborhoods once scarred by drug houses, residents watched cleanup crews board windows and tow vehicles used in the operation. Federal analysts continued to compile evidence from dozens of phones, ledgers, and encrypted messaging apps seized during the arrests. Investigators say each text and wire transfer could lead to another cell of the organization. Already, new warrants are being drafted to pursue secondary distributors and financial couriers linked to the network's Arizona supply chain. According to DEA briefings, those follow-up operations will extend beyond Washington into Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada, as agents tighten the net around remaining contacts inside the cartel pipeline. This was phase 1, said a senior agent. Next comes the financial strike. We freeze the money. We starve the supply. The operation's success also marked a shift in how the Pacific Northwest confronts organized crime. Federal task force leaders say the days of isolated city operations are over. Every county is now connected under a regional enforcement grid. From mountain passes to ports, from Seattle's alleys to the I-5 corridor, the message is unified. Traffickers will find no safe harbor. As night fell over Seattle, convoys of marked and unmarked vehicles rolled back into their bases, officers exhausted but unshaken. Inside the command center, maps of Western Washington still glowed on the screens. Each pin a raid completed, each red dot a target already taken down. Before shutting off the lights, one agent wrote 2 words on the whiteboard: still hunting. Because for the men and women of the DEA and Seattle Police, Operation Take Back America was not an end. It was the beginning of a larger mission to dismantle every cartel-connected network operating in the Pacific Northwest, until there was nothing left to rebuild.